Hello and welcome to Great Train Layouts Live. I'm your host Nick Gozarak, and I'm gonna shine a light on my face. I feel like there's probably a song about that. Anyway, welcome to Great Train Layouts Live, where we take track plans and turn them into virtual 3D creations. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day so far, and pleasure as always to have you join us this evening or afternoon or on replay, whatever the case may be. Happy that you're here. Today we are having a look at the Sandy Fork Lumber Company. This comes from the July 2014 model railroader. I've linked to the track plan in the description of this video, so you can have a look at it even once we toggle between the layers. This is a 9-foot by 16-foot HO scale layout that's kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different logging railroad ideas, we'll say. I've been wanting to do a logging railroad for some time, and this one is essentially the quintessential because there's a little bit of everything. We've got logging camps, we've got a lumber mill, we've got a coal mine, we've got a swampy track, we've got switchbacks, we've got an interchange with a class 1. It's all here, and it's in. I'm also getting notifications of disconnections and reconnections. So if we get disconnected and reconnected, I apologize for that. Hopefully the internet is stable on my end today. It's been a little wonky earlier in the day. So this layout started as a 6x6 layout here. And you can kind of tell that because what we see in this section is pretty much isolated to this section, with the exception of this one spur that we have coming off, which I guess you would actually say is the main, and that is this expansion here with our class 1 yard and our switchback. So, taking a look at the comments just to make sure you guys are along for the ride. Hi, Kevin Gilbert. Pacific Productions. Good to see you again, White Star 1222. Millennial Modeler. Good evening from Tuscarora Railways. Been looking forward to this live stream for a few days now. Based on the thumbnail, yeah, we're gonna have some fun with some logging engines. A nice Willamette is on the agenda for the playtime this evening. But in order to play with it, we're going to have to build it. As you see, we are starting from ground zero, and so that's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get our pick list up to remind ourselves of what buildings that we have in place. A lot of this we're going to actually build with... we'll do the brown dirty rail. I might end up switching that out later for a ballastless rail. So I like starting from the lowest point on the layout and then building up rather than having to build down, because then we'll have tracks floating midair, but we can level out the terrain to match the height of the tracks. Hi, CJ. So 44 looks like the lowest point here, what we've got with this yard and so forth. That yard also being pretty simple. I don't know why. With this one, if I zoom in too close, the board disappears, which is really annoying. We're going to just place some yard tracks down. Some of this may end up being replaced with some nicer rail, because this is technically class 1 interchange. I might end up making some changes here too. So in the original layout, your staging is underneath this mountain here. So one change I'm definitely going to make is, rather than having it underneath, it's going to actually end up going to the back, because I don't like having to layer a staging under scenery and underground. Not my idea of a good time. Just want to make sure that still streaming, and like we are, so that's good. Okay. But we'll get the basic parts in here to start with. Sorry if that blinking in and out is kind of distracting, believe me, I feel the same way. But hopefully we can kind of keep our distance from it enough that it won't prove to be too difficult. I have a feeling our grades are going to come into play pretty soon. So the reason we're doing a logging railroad today is in part to celebrate the recent announcement that the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad in Washington State is making a comeback. It's going to be brought back to operation after a little over 2 years of dormancy due to COVID and other financial issues. And they have a very nice collection of logging locomotives. So it felt only fitting. If you've listened to the latest episode of the Roundhouse, you will have heard my interview with Bethan Marr, who's the executive director for Western Forest Industries Museum, talking about the game plan for that. And so now we're celebrating that with a nice old school logging railroad. And there's so many track plans out there we could be doing. The reason I chose this one, even though it's a fictional, in some ways it's advantageous that it's a fictional, because then, as I was talking about last month with the Valley, City Street, and Interurban, when you're doing a fictional or something that's not a heavily documented prototype, it just gives you more leeway to experiment, or in the case of Train Z, to use assets that you have, rather than worrying about the fact that this station doesn't fit and that kind of thing. We'll smooth that out a little bit like so. And in the case of this, there's just no prototype for it, period, so we can do what we want, and I like doing what I want. Well, go off of estimate for that. I really wish I knew why that was proving to be so cantankerous. We'll put that there, and then we'll get that dragged down. I mean, the good news with the logging railroad is that the quality of the track work does not in any way, shape, or form have to be perfect, but it has to look at least reasonable for Train Z. But yeah, a lot of logging railroads we could choose, but this has just a little bit of everything, and I like that. I think it's a good exploration of trying to get all of these different elements of different prototype logging railroads into a single design, and that feels like fun. Especially, I mean, I'm very interested to see what you're excited about. For me, I think my favorite bit is the swampy track. We're going to get to build some of the swampy track. And once you see it, you'll go, oh yeah, I've probably seen a prototype photo based on that idea. Let's get into some buildings, because buildings are going to sort of dictate the lay of the land a bit. Man, the more I zoom in, the more it really does not like when I need to be super close. So this is going to be our lumber mill. We're going to place it about there. And this is, I like that as a lumber mill. Let's see. Rudy says, Nick, I feel like such a complex logging railroad requires a Betsy. Well, if there was a Betsy for Train Z, then we could have that, unfortunately. No such Betsy exists. That would be a Railroads Online thing. So we're going to get these to line up as best we can. But I love a good logging railroad. Comment time. What is your favorite logging railroad? I'd be curious. Either past or present. Cass, obviously not logging, but paying homage to. So, favorite railroad, past or present, that somehow pertains to logging. This is one where the buildings are really going to make it shine, because we don't have too many of them. The ones we do have character and grit, and that's going to be really nice. Goal for today is going to be to finish this 6x6 section with scenery. I don't think we'll get to this section here with the logging camp and the the switchbacks. We'll see. I could surprise myself. Maybe we'll get track for it done or something like that. But have to wait and see. Some company houses. Get those lined up. So this was one of 3 track plans from Model Railroaders' July 2014 issue, which focused on 3 different train layouts built into relatively small spaces. And the other one is a sort of Tehachapi Loop inspired deal. This one is my favorite of the 3. Oh, and one that's a loop that's a Virginian Railroad theme. And the other ones were nice, but this was definitely my favorite. Logging. So we're going to cheat a little bit. So we're going to go out the dimensions a little bit just because this building, we're stuck with the what I presume would be the boiler house over here. So we're going to put the engine house a little further back, but I don't see that as a major issue. So we'll get that lined up and then make sure we like how the track sits in there. Like so. A little crooked. Straighten that out and then we'll get the building. Wrong building rotated. So I feel like this is a good one to start out with to kind of have all these different elements. And then I'm sure down the line we'll have some other plans that we use that are based on actual prototypes. I could think of one in particular that I really want to do with a coal hauling emphasis at some point. We'll put this here. That seems like that's going to be the best way to fit it. There's a water tank here, but if we'll need to get it to use the interactive track, we're going to need to move that. So delete that. We connect those bits and just move that to here. And then we'll need to move that switch because, boy, that junction is rough. And also completely laid out in the wrong way. Okay. So, I don't think I can have a switch on this point. I cannot. So, we'll lay this as a straight. And then make sure we get that to about there. And then we will take this and connect it to about here. There we go. Right about there. Yosemite Lumber Company is my favorite, says White Star, and Morristown area was essentially a logging company. They just cut down trees and spiked right to them where they fell. I think that describes a lot of different railroads that did that type of thing. As far as getting it all cleared out and using whatever means necessary to do so. I mean, the Transcontinental Railroad, it's amusing how highly praised that is as a track building entity, because actually the track building was incredibly shoddy. But, you know, yay for that history. Yes. So we're going to put that here. We've got a car shop. Nice looking car shop. Almost probably too nice looking. But I like it. It looks rustic enough. And we're instead of doing 2 tracks, we're doing a single track. So we can afford to go with a slightly longer one because of that. Get our straight sections laid out here for the array of switches that we'll have in this part. And let's see if that can break off, and then to about there. Edgewood Lumber or Logging Railway on Vancouver Island is a favorite of mine. Is that the one that was running until just a few years ago? Yeah, the one with the SW switchers. Yeah, that was a very neat operation. One of the ones I've come to appreciate, similar to that, is the Simpson Railroad. We did an episode of it on the podcast way back in the first year when it was experiencing its final days of operation. Wish I could have seen that running. So now that line's being turned into a forest railroad, which is pretty good. A lot of interesting history in logging railroads. And the thing that I like about them is just that they feel logging railroads are what I would say are the Mad Max of railroading, except for maybe Australian railroads, because that's where Mad Max was filmed. But in the sense that you had these rough engines that were designed to handle any and all situations, and they got outfitted with chains and cans and whatever it took to keep them running. They were beaten up, worked hard, and there's something really wonderfully rugged about that, I would say. We don't want it to switch there. It really taps into that rugged railroading. A lot of character and personality in it, I would say. Let's see. Did we? Yep, we kept all the bits, which is good. You can see this is something that offers a lot of switching, a lot of back and forth, because we've got we have everything from switchbacks. I mean, we've got switchbacks to get into this area near the drying kiln, and that's going to be a donkey. What's the name for it? I have it in here somewhere. I want to say it's a donkey. Not the animal, but hopefully now I can actually find it. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. If I search logging, maybe hopefully it comes up. There it is. That's what we're going to have there. I don't think I'm going to keep it here for right now. A Decker log loader. I mean, if that isn't steampunk, I don't know what is. And it's equipment like this that's really going to give this railroad personality. It just feels rugged. It feels tough. So, let us... But we'll hold off on that because we're going to have to adjust the grades a bit to get everything to the right height. We got the engine house in place. The tool shed I wanted to put here. And so I probably still want to put that here. And the storage shed. Where did I want to put the storage shed? I was going for there. I'll figure that out eventually. We did that. We did the carpentry shop. Oh, I think yeah, that's where I wanted to put that. Put the carpentry shop as our sort of general store fill in. Because this calls for a general store, but I don't have a general store building I love. So we're going to go with that instead. And then, what was the other house that I had in mind for over here? I think it was a company house. Let's see. Quick bit of house shopping. Hee hee. We'll go with this for now. Until I find something I like better. But that will work for the time being. Now we'll just close the loop. It calls for a tunnel track. The article doesn't really have any great photos showing the portals, so I feel like the tunnels are going to be really discreet, because a lot of logging railroads did not have them. And I think the real function of the tunnel here is just to give us an excuse to have a loop, because you could operate this as a separate switchback coming from this end rather than going through the tunnel and going that way. A lot of different ways that you could operate this layout given the arrangement of the track. Straighten that. But I think this track design is to be credited for having a lot of character in a very small space. Because it just gives you so much to work with and so much to do, which I think is really nifty. Without being a spaghetti bowl. If this was all flat, then it would be very spaghetti bowl-ish. But as is, it being that this is all going to be at different elevations, we avoid the spaghetti bowl. Where did I find the deeser? Not what the deeser is, or the decker. Oh, the decker. The decker is it's on the download station for Train C. If you search decker, you should be able to find it. I think it's a Vulcan asset, if I'm not mistaken, but that's just going off of memory. Now, I will confess to being a little bit nervous about how this is going to turn out in one regard, and that is just having all of these tight grades and tight clearances between tracks. It is a logging railroad, so having these super sharp curves isn't really that much of an issue, but more just that we have a little bit of a climb. So this point here is at 49 inches, then this is at 50 inches, then we get up to 51 and 52, and can those heights coexist in the sim? Okay. Obviously, in the real world, they coexist, but here, and part of what was interesting, there's a photo in the article that shows an overall view of everything, and from that view, it's amazing how much of what we see here is buried. So there's going to be a hillside right behind these buildings that leads to these tracks, and obviously here you can kind of see them all spelled out, and you're going, well, why don't you just build a track straight through to your time mill? But the whole purpose is to have the man, I am brain farting tonight. The functional switchbacks. Because if you go straight there, there's less of an operational challenge. So I think that having these switchbacks is really a key element of bringing out the play value in what's essentially just a 6x6 space. So I think that's all our track. Oh, wait. We have to get our track into our shops here, which let's just make sure that lines up relatively straight with what we've placed before. And I'd say it does if we place it like that, and then we'll move the building to get it aligned. While I'm thinking of it, though, I want to thank those of you who are supporting the Roundhouse on Patreon and Great Train Layouts Live by going to patreon.com/theroundhouse. Having your support means a lot, and as a token of my appreciation to those of you who are supporting the show, the Kootenai Lake Navigation Company, the first live stream train layout that we did, is available for anyone pledging at least $1 a month up. So if you aren't already a patron, you could go to patreon.com/theroundhouse, subscribe for even as little as $1 a month, and I appreciate the support. And you get early access to the Kootenai Lake Navigation Company layout before that goes fully public. That is the British Columbia themed 3x6 N scale layout that we did way back as our first 2 live streams. Shout out if you've been watching these live streams since we did that episode. Alrighty. And of course, now that we've laid stuff down, we've finished laying the track down, we can actually zoom in on all of these kind of scenic points. But I think we've got it all as far as the 6x6 is concerned. Yep. So I'm going to start working on this section, and then we'll go to the there's 2 branch lines here. This is our swampy track that goes along the bottom. I want to get that in there. Okay, so we're going to do this part of it. I don't know how much of the coal mine I'm going to want to tackle today. The reason being I'm definitely going to want to go with no ballast for this section here. And yeah, so the challenge with this section here is the grid system, the way the grid system works in Train Z, it makes it really difficult to have 2 tracks at wildly different elevations next to each other. So what I'm going to end up doing is spacing the tracks a little further apart horizontally, so making it a bit deeper of a scene. That way, it just makes it easier to build, and it looks much more scenic and appealing in that regard. Fortunately, we don't actually have to worry about getting these perfectly straight sections, because part of the point, in a way, is not make it look perfectly straight. Make it look rough, used. Yeah, like that section's nice and straight, and it's probably too straight, even though that's what the map says. So I'm gonna just lay this. Well, we need a straight section, otherwise that curve's gonna look weird. So we will insert a spline point, and I think that's the way to do it. Now it's got a little bit of a kink in it. Yeah, much more natural. Okay, so yes, goal for tonight, this 6x6, and hopefully this little bit here of the swampy bit. So what do I want? So I want to get grades in place. So we know 44 is our base, and I think by the middle, let's have a look at elevations for this. Oop. 43. Actually, that is the very lowest, but I think I'm going to ignore that for the sake of simplicity. In fact, I think for the entire sake of simplicity, we're just going to leave this loop, since none of it is showing anything other than, except for that, is showing 44. We're just going to leave it at 44, just because that keeps it easier. We're talking about minor grades anyway. We're not talking about things that are really going to change the nature of the design fundamentally. Wow, that is an ugly junction. Let's see what we can do about that. Oh, that's right. Okay, we can fix that. We can make that look nice. There we go, baby. Almost. There we go. Okay, that is what I was going for. Lifetime fan here of what makes this layout great. Thank you so much, Millennial Modeler. Good afternoon to Ben's Trains in Phoenix, Arizona. And Squiggy saying this layout feels cramped. Yes, it does. And this scene in particular, all of this track is all visible. And I think, you could make the case and be like, once we have the scenery in place, you can make the case, well, it's more spaghetti bowl than I prefer. I'm okay with it, because I think it just adds to this feel of having this nice, full lumberyard with plenty of opportunities for ground clutter and the like. So this goes up to 45. So I do want to put in a little bit of a grade. How do I want to do that? Because I do want to add a little bit of elevation between these two layers. So we know to put in a height value of 2.2. Let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, it makes that switch kind of ugly. But I like it as an idea. So if we put an additional spline point here, and then start the grade, and make it go up 2.2. Then we've already done a little bit to not make it too visually monotonous, I guess you could say. Because already now there's a little bit of height difference. I think this might be at 40. I'm gonna need to pull out the magazine and if there is that much of a height difference. But I think I just want to do it that way, even if there isn't. Because then it adds this idea that there's at least a little bit of separation from the town and the lumber mill. Because we're gonna add some trees and bushes here to really make that feel grown in. This is all 45, so that's all flat, which keeps that nice and easy. Now, let us see what we want to do here. We want to climb a grade, and we want to climb it really, really quickly because we're supposed to get up to 49 inches from a base of 44. So that's a climb of 5 inches, which the values that I'm plugging into here in height value are metric, but they're real meters. So 2.2 is what results from converting metric to imperial and then dividing by 87 to make it, converting it by a factor of 87 to account for the fact that this is HO. Let's see if we can make it climb that in a decent manner. Because there aren't any height indications to let us know whether or not the track back here is actually at that height. But given that this is allegedly a 44 inches, there can't be that much difference. Most it could be is maybe 45. In which case, then we'll end up revising all of this to be 45. And then I can't imagine that's goes down 2 inches to drop there. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so this is a logging railroad, though. So we could go kind of crazy on the grades, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So if we do a -4, he will leaves us. Sometimes easier said than done to get it to behave properly. Well, let's just do a +4 from the other direction. So if we do a +4 coming out of here, are we going to be able to make that climb? No. Does it appear like we will? Although it's also going down as opposed to up. Putting that really low for reasons I don't know. Sometimes it can be really difficult in Train Z to make the grades behave in the right direction. And this is a perfect example of that. Let's see. I want to raise this up a bit, though. That gets us our the switch frog back. And then we raise that for... And we're back. So this is the issue of model railroader that this layout appears in. And if we turn to page 40, you want to say it is? Yep. Or before then. We can see this lovely centerfold image from the lumber mill. But the real reason I wanted to bring this, I'm going to show you as best I can on this because I haven't scanned it in or anything like that. This this is our layout right here that we're creating, the Sandy Fork Lumber Company. This is a front view, actually pretty similar to what on the screen right now. So what I'm trying to high that track up in the mountains actually is, this track over here. I'm trying to figure out how high that actually is. If that is a full 4 inches or 5 inches above the main line. So I'm going to take a look at it now that I've shown you guys what that looks like. I do think it's right about the height difference between... Yeah, I think that is actually... If I get my pages straight. So I do think that it is actually a 1 inch difference between those two levels. And looking at it, I think it might be that much of a climb. So then it just begs the question, how do we manage to get this high when we started down here? According to this, the maximum grade is actually 5%, so that helps us a bit. So I'm going to try seeing if we can put a grade in the mountains and how high we could get to once still coming back here at 44 inches. So let's start by raising this up so that we get the switches here correctly. And we're just going to go for that 5% grade because yay for getting that elevation quick and easy. Okay, so this is as high as we could go. So we've gained essentially 1 inch in elevation. Which, if I look at one of the other photos that I have, does that seem about right? Yeah, it does. So if we look at this image here, you'll see what we're aiming for as far as the scene that you see on the screen right now, what it's going to look like once we're done. So there is some kind of grade coming out of here. So even though it doesn't mark it, there's a grade. So with that in mind, then we can just take that height and we can apply it to here. And we know that is the absolute max that it can possibly reach. Now, we'll take this and raise it up. And use that as our starting point for a 5% climb this way. I don't think that it's a full... I don't think it's the full height that it says it is. If it is, I just don't know how that's physically possible. So we're going to go with the next best thing, because it's still... We're still getting our climb in at the end of the day, and that's what's really most important. I'm just going to lower this bit down, and I'm going to try to... There we go. There's our 5%. And... Oop, not there. Okay. And so the height difference I come up with is 8.8. That's more like... So not quite what they were saying height-wise, but I like the look of it, and you know, this isn't about getting one-for-one grades. This layout's been built in real life. We know that it could exist. All we're doing here is just celebrating it by exploring it and kind of unpacking what makes this layout great, as we do here on Great Train Layouts Live. And then we'll use this height for this vertex over here, and here, and here, just to get that switch bit kind of sort of where it needs to be. Which, if that track were to go down, that could work, but actually the track is supposed to go up, so I think we're going to have to keep it level to what actually this point is. Yeah, that seems like more than a 5% climb. Maybe it isn't, but let's try that. Either way, we're getting the same general idea of things. Actually need to raise that up a bit, which is not a bad problem to have. There comes in the frog. And that is a track height of 7.3, so we'll just apply that over here. And then after this switch point, here, we can climb up. Well, is there really any point to climb up there? Probably not. We'll just apply them all to the same height. Again, I apologize if we cut in and out. I just got a message that I went offline and then immediately went back online, so sorry about the interruptions, guys. Proving to be a little bit of a tricky night, as it were. Oh yeah, I see where we dipped away down. So, hopefully you're still sticking with us, and if you're watching this on replay, well then, you can just fast forward the bits where we cut out. Okay. So, let's finish getting this track work taken care of in here. We want it to climb a little bit more once it gets out here. Yes, Millennial Modeler, my cable provider, does owe me a refund. Because, of course, it would be on a live stream. And I've been having issues all day with Xfinity Comcast. And, of course, it would be on a live streaming night that things would be going awry, as it were. But we work with what we've got. I'm just happy I get to have a nice, fun evening with you guys. That's what makes me happy. Yep, that's about right. Get that switch in there. The main thing is just to give the impression that there's a little bit more of a climb between here and that tie mill, so as to kind of justify its existence. And then just build that up. 8.76. Which, yeah, that seems about right. I mean, we have enough room to clear the track underneath it, so... But if we wanted to, we could even put that on a bit of a grade. We don't have to, though, so... Don't think we will. Then we'll take the height from this, and we'll apply it to this complex junction here. Not really much room for climbing here. This is supposed to be higher up, though, which we could do that. We could make that climb a little bit coming out of that curve. Trainman05, this is very helpful. I've been looking for inspiration to continue on the login railroad I'm rebuilding in the game. Well, glad that this is helpful. There we are. And that's why I thought this would be a good build, is hopefully no matter what style of logging railroad you do, you'll come out of this with some idea of what you want to create as far as... Man, that really does not look right. There, that's better. And I'm just gonna kind of wing it and try to get a 5% grade. Oh, that's only a 2%, so yep, we can... I guess we are hitting it right when we say 5%. We just need to... I'm so not used to working with such steep grades. It's a bit surreal to then see them and go, oh wow, that feels like it's a lot higher than it should be. Actually, that looks good. So now, yeah, that looks good. And now we've got a sense of height difference, we've got a sense of elevation. It's going to be interesting to separate these with scenic blocks between these three columns because they're so close together. Going to be a lot of trees, maybe some rocks. But we'll see what that looks like. So. Hey Rich, I was wondering if it was on your end or mine. We have a strong cold front moving through. Oh yeah, the connection issues. Yeah, I hate to say it, it's my end of things. Much as I wish it wasn't. Yeah, we'll keep that way. Looks a little janky, but then again, it is logging railroad. It should be a little... hang on that. We might have to change some stuff here because I don't like how that looks. We'll need to lower that a bit more and then redo the grades. Just to get them to sit right. Doesn't like that we're putting that on a grade. Let's see if we could force it down a little more. Good enough. Maybe? Maybe not. Maybe that's a bit extreme of a grade change. Always feel bad when it comes to this tinkering stuff and recognize that this is the finicky stuff, especially for your model rareitors. You're like, I don't necessarily care about the sim elements. Get to the part where we're talking about the layout design. I hear you on that. But as complicated as it can be to get track and things like that to work properly in this game, I will say that the payoff for being able to see what your layout's going to look like is worth it. So I would still say yes, it's worth learning the Train Z Surveyor and trying to get it to work properly for the sake of being able to pre-visualize your layouts. And speaking of pre-visualization, good time to mention as well that if you like the layouts that you've seen me build on Great Train Layouts Live, or what makes this layout great, and you'd like my help with helping to realize your vision of your train layout, whether you're looking to have it designed or if you have a design but you're trying to figure out different scenery elements, I do take commissions. Go to greattrainlayoutslive.com/commissions. Oh jeez. Bad, but I can't even remember the URLs. Just head to greattrainlayoutslive.com, and on the top you'll see Let's Build Your Layout. Click on that, and I'm more than happy to talk with you. Michael, I thoroughly enjoyed the build so far. It's giving me ideas for building here in the future. Good. I'm glad to hear that. We're going to approximate it like this for now, because I'm feeling stuck on this point, and I don't want to be stuck here forever. So we're just going to grab the height of that. We're going to grab, well, that's the height I wanted to grab. We're going to apply that height to the surrounding track just to get it to all look right. Yep, that looks right. And then got that at the right elevation, and we can raise this up a little bit more. Now we could do the 5% climb coming out of here to what I would presume would be a logging camp. Something didn't look right with that. There we go. It's frustrating when you undo the steps and it doesn't quite undo everything, so you're kind of stuck with weird visual glitches like this track hanging. This is why I hesitated initially on doing this as a live build, because I kind of thought it would be a bit funky, and sure enough it's not letting me down in that regard, but we'll make it work. We will make it work. I don't know if that's 5% or not, but it looks okay, so that's what we're going with. And then getting the height value off of this, and then applying to that. I like how that looks. We're going with that. And then just this last little ways, we have to go to the tie treatment facility, which is going to be our summit of this part of the layout. And from here, we'll do another 5% climb. And that puts us at a total height of 9.52. So 9.52, have we climbed 7 inches? No, not from 44 inches to 51. But I'm not sure if those height markers are exactly correct. The way I see it, it's good enough. So we've got the track in there, and if we turn off the base maps, we can see what that looks like. So that is a mess of track. But it's a good mess of track. I think this is a case where you could say this is a mess of track worth having, especially once we start putting in some trees and some scenery and some cliff faces and some scenery dividers, so it doesn't feel like it's all running over each other. If this was a single layer, forget it. It would be unnecessarily complicated, shall we say. But for this, no, I think for this we're good. And I love the operating potential it gives, because it's a 6x6. It's not that big a space. You figure if you were doing this in N, it would be a 3x3. That's really teeny weeny as a layout. But there's so much switching to be done in here, because we've got this interchange here that we'll be able to pick cars up from. And we could be running them to the sawmill. We could have this team track. I don't think this track's used as specified. So I like calling it a team track, because that it's a way of hauling maybe some box cars and some flat cars and things not related, or hoppers, some things not related to logging, and have a little bit of traffic variety coming into here. So with that taken care of, let us get to the terrain. And also switch to the right layer. So now we gotta make it all make sense. It's gotta work. And hopefully it will. So we'll start by just... You're gonna want to put the backs on the bottom height so they're not affected by what we're doing. So we're just gonna force them at a height value of 0. Meanwhile, while I'm doing this, how are your own layout projects coming along? Have you been working on your layouts during the summer at all? I've actually been working on this guy a little bit. Not so much working on the actual layout itself, but I am working on a station kit that I'm in the middle of. My idea for this layout is it's going to be a tourist railroad dinner train theme. And so the scene is basically just the station with the runaround and maybe an industry. It's about 4 feet 8 inches long, so not really a lot more room than that to work with. But I'm really falling in love with the idea of doing a tourist railroad that's specifically a tourist railroad. We don't tend to see a lot of those in model railroading. It tends to be here's modern, but here's modern freight, or commuter, or obviously a lot of old-timey. I'm drawn to the idea of doing tourist railroading. And that actually, I'm tempted to make that a Great Train Layouts live build to play around with the scenery a little bit. CJ and Aske want some meatballs with that spaghetti track. Yeah, it is verily spaghetti. So our goal today in the next hour is going to be to make it not look so spaghetti, to justify all this switchback insanity. So I want to set these to the grade height, and then we'll bring it back down to 0, fine tune that in a bit. And yeah, we'll do it that way. And then we'll set the heights on these guys. Obviously, we're going to have some discrepancies. And you can, as we're going here, you'll see why I want to do the coal mine off camera. Because this was difficult enough to get to behave properly with all these switches, but also with the ground, it's going to be really interesting to get this to perform right. So let's see how that looks in just a moment. So this is just kind of roughing it in, then from here we'll actually get it properly leveled out, unbury the tracks that are buried, all that good kind of stuff. Yeah, I think we'll go that way. Then here. And just need to raise it up here. And we'll just focus on raising this up. This, at least, will be a little bit more straightforward. No, I like that the first way. So already by just doing an initial roughing it, you can see that now it looks less spaghetti monster-y. Now there's reason for... I'm going to take a screenshot of that just because that seems like fun. Now those tracks feel motivated. They make a certain degree of sense. So let's get to fine-tuning it. Millennial Modeler working on installing car weights and magnetized head scale coal loads for easier loading unloading. Head scale lends itself very well to long trains, including long coal trees, but the thought of loading and unloading those is always felt quite daunting, so that seems like a good system of things. When we get back to building the Tumbler Ridge, that's going to come into play. I still haven't worked on that track plan at all, but it is something I want to work on in the next couple of months. I was actually going to leave this month as a poll up to you guys, but then with the announcement that the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad's coming back, I just made the decision for what I wanted. But I think next month we'll probably do another poll, and you guys can chime in and say what you'd like to see built on the show, what type of layout, because I have no shortage of ideas. Shortage of ideas is never my particular issue. So here you can see we have just enough room to have space between these, although we have enough space to have these hills. We don't have enough space to have actual rock cuttings, you'd say, so we're going to have to do rock cuttings with scenery. Double Tube fan, hello chat. Hello, Double Tube fan. Michael Hostetter, haven't been able to do a whole lot in trains or with models. Finish up some dual gauge at one Park Railroad. Nice. Park engines are fun. And I like the look of that. We're going to get that up to the right-ish height. I think we're going to need to go one more to get it to be good. But see, this is where you can see our issues with the limitations of the grid system, because if we raise it up, we bury this track. If we lower it, we have this track hanging, and we're going to have to leave that track hanging mostly. Now, I did see in one of the recent newsletters from the developers of the sim that they're working on making grids that have a much higher resolution, you would say, to be able to have a much finer control over this type of thing, and all I can say is it can't come soon enough. I would love to see that happen. And I think that's something they're planning for Surveyor 2.0. And frankly, if I've been holding off of the latest version of Train Z, but if they can make the latest version of Train Z have really nice detailed grids so I can make hills in between these, then I'll probably make the swap at that point. Until then, we make do with spline assets and that other, and trees and those kinds of things to make do. I like that. We'll get this lifted up. And I am feeling like I should get rid of the ballast just to see how that looks like But that's going to come into play a bit more too once we have some ground coverage. And thankfully, because this is a layout that actually exists, we can just look at the real layout and say, what does the ground cover look like? Okay, it looks like that. Okay, that's what we're going to do. The advantage with having the track, the ballasted places, it does help to give something that connects to the ground. But we'll work around that as need be. Honestly, burying some of the ties probably isn't a bad idea anyway, because it is a logging railroad. Again, certain tricks that one's used to dealing with perfectionism when you're dealing with class 1s, and then here it's like, oh yeah, we don't have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And then we just need to raise this up a bit. Just to get that to blend a little better. And I'm leaving that as a level piece just so that when we're parking cars on it, they don't want to roll down. So I think it doesn't quite visually justify why we can't just connect those two parts, but is good enough. Is good enough. So, let us... Oh, no, I don't want to switch the track yet. We'll get this bit finished. And then from here, we'll be going back into the town, which doesn't have a name on the map. We're just going to call it Sandy Fork because that seems fitting for the Sandy Fork log. Okay. Yep. I like how that looks. And then we'll just take whatever the height is here. And then we'll be applying that height to a larger radius with a greater sensitivity because we're just raising that up en masse. And I don't think there's anything in this part of the design that we have. Nope, just trees. So I think what we'll probably do is just make this wide enough that we could have it be a scene with this building. Yeah, I like that. And then... nope, that buries the track. We need to push the building back a wee bit. Or maybe even turn it just to get it to... Omit the building entirely, maybe? What is that long tie mill building, if it's not too much trouble? It is RC Carpentry Shop. Available on the download station. RW is fading. I just did a live op session on my layout yesterday. A few gremlins snuck in. All in all, show went well. Oh, I'll have to check that out, Rich. That sounds like a good time of fades. Live streaming is a lot of fun, admittedly. I do enjoy it. It's good to have the company. Because if I didn't, I would just be talking to myself. And that would be okay. I'm very used to talking to myself, and that's not a bad thing. But it's true that it's nice to have company. You guys are company. Thank you for keeping me company. And hopefully you're learning things along the way and finding this interesting in some capacity, because I want this to have actual benefits. I mean, it's fine if it's just fun, but it makes me feel good knowing that you're able to take away lessons from this and apply them to your own model railroading. Good enough for now. I have a feeling that with some of this stuff, I'm just going to need to come back and kind of fine-tune it to my liking and figure out what I want to do with certain scenes. But we'll figure that out as we go. Hope you guys are enjoying the music. This is another playlist I put together from Epidemic Sound. I wanted to go for that kind of Railroad Tycoon 2 hard blues type of vibe of things, so hopefully you enjoy that. And here too, we get to do a conflict about raising and lowering specific points. So we'll just lower that. Yeah, we'll figure out what to do about that point. Sorry, guys. But there we have it. Now we just need to do some... We're going to really flatten some of those grades here where we want the rain to show through properly. And this too, another one of these conflicting points that we'll have to find some sort of spline asset for. The trick is that a lot of spline assets just give you rock walls, which obviously look a little bit too well made up. But we'll come up with some sort of suitable solution that'll look halfway decent. Maybe rocks and just add a bunch of bushes to kind of... Or stone walls. It's not that rocks that are issues, it's that they're stone walls. The harmonica slaps. Glad to hear it. What is that long time? Oh, yeah, I already answered your question. And then we're going to get the height of this, which is 2.18, which makes sense. Oop. And we're going to get that and apply that here-ish. And here too, we have this conflict of height. We're just going to have to... We'll just have to make do with that discrepancy and then polish it later. But that won't be an issue for this part of the show, where we could get this track to look and pave properly. And that's probably as much as we're going to do without messing things up there. Then we switch that to 0. Yep, good enough. And then we will also lower this to 0. And we'll have to come up with some sort of solution for the track there that's hanging off the edge. We'll figure out something for that. Even if I have to resort to stone walls, we'll come up with a solution. Okay, and there we have it. That's a loose fitting of the grade. I might do some honing in a bit, but we've got about 45 minutes left, and I really want to focus on trees and rock cuts and what we could do to give this a greater sense of depth. So now, at least, you've got a sense of a little bit of scene separation. And I think that's what we're going for here, is this idea that you have these sort of lateral scene separations. So what I mean by that is that if we're looking at the layout this way, you've got one scene which is the really, I'd say yard, but it's really like a small runaround with the lumber mill here. And this is all kind of on one plane. Then by way of building up bushes and so forth, the town that we have here, the company houses, that's another plane. And then essentially everything that is this hill and the switchback, that's our third plane. Plain and simple. I know. Okay. And then let's just see if we could get those buildings honed in a little bit more so they don't quite look like they're sinking in the ground. We might also place them a little closer to the track. So we'll get this all leveled. All one. Yeah, that looks good. And all this leveled out here. We can get that raised up. And then put that house here. I'm not sure that I like that house as a company house, but did I just want to use the cast house? I feel like maybe I just want to use the cast house because that looks too modern. Yeah, I don't like this house for how perfect it looks. I wish it was a bit more weathered. I like the style of it. Bothering me too much. Let's search company house, see what we've got. Wrong kind of design. This is a bit too small. Not that it's the right building for this layout, but I love this building. It's a nice building. Man, I don't have a lot of company houses. I'm gonna do a quick shopping trip to see if anything comes up when I search company house on the download station, because I want something with a little bit more sense of grit about it. No, I've really kind of exhausted my options there. We'll go with this one. Yeah, I don't love it. Because I want kind of like the foreman's house, a really nice one. But there's no denying that looks good, so we're going to go with that for the time being. We need to lower the ground a little bit more around here to get that building to sink down properly. There we go. Let's get that height there. We'll use that height. That works. Okay. I like how that looks. I don't know about you guys, but hopefully you agree. Hi, Frisco. Good evening, GRE. And stream is so chill right now, yet I'm in a talkative mood, but I don't want to be overbearing. Don't worry about it, tube fan. Feel free to chime in as you see fit. And then Rich, I don't know, I think I'd be tempted to lose the short spur near the company home since there is a big difference in elevation between it and the next track over. You're talking about this one? Well, the reason why we need... Oh, or are you talking about the one up front? If we look at the photo, what is the purpose of this? Well, as far as I can tell, the purpose of this track looks like it's for some kind of... Actually, it looks like it's for a ballast dumper or something like that. Actually, I'm going to think of it. It looks like they... Nope, they didn't know the track. They got the tracks in there. Yep, there's a ballast loader here. So... we'll keep it for the sake of having a ballast loader. I like it also from the standpoint of having something else to do. So what I'm talking about, you look very closely at the image here, where my finger is. You'll see that track that we're looking at there. Looks like there's some kind of ballast loader. The one in front of it, I think that might just be car storage. Yeah, looks like it's just car storage. In this photo, there's some equipment on it, like a bulldozer and a log lifter. I mean, it doesn't serve a purpose, but I think I kind of need to keep it because we don't have a lot of room to store cars. When you look at the plan as a whole, we've got this track here for dumping logs. There's this track here, which is a storage track, best as I could tell. Yeah, in the image that I'm working off of, there's a gas electric car that's stored there. But I also feel like you need somewhere to load lumber. This isn't a track plan that makes itself evident as far as how you would use specific tracks. Some of it's obvious, like here's where you load coal. Here is this specific industry. But I kind of want to leave this just so we have room to tuck cars out of the way. So we're going to keep that for the time being. I'm happy enough with that. So let's get some rocks. And we're going to use those rocks to create dividers between our scenes. Namely between these scenes here. The back of this, I'm mainly going to just use trees. Just because I don't want to be too repetitive. Ooh, I like that. I mean, it's maybe a bit too Looks like it's the wrong area of the U.S. I'm not a geologist. Although I like the coloration of it, even if it is a bit too sandy. Let's see what else we've got as far as different rock patterns. This seems more like it. Yep, that's what I want to be having. Now, yes, admittedly you could say, but Nick, art isn't working through rocks kind of more than what a lot of logging railroads would do. It doesn't seem kind of overkill, and I would say to that, yes it is, but we don't have a lot of options in Train C with how to work around that, so we are making do. So and I'm gonna try to bury these with trees and vegetation so that it doesn't stand out as, oh my gosh, here's these gigantic rock cuts. What kind of budget did this logging railroad have to be able to do all their tunneling? all their rock cuts. Ah, I like that. Yeah. Stuff like that. That's a wee bit bigger than what I have room for in this space. But cool. Yeah, just a bit overkill. Like the coloration of that, though. Wonder if I can download a couple more of those. Ultra rock. I can. So we're gonna download a bunch of those ultra rocks. While those are downloading, what I already have. I like the coloration of this. It's just a bit too gigantic for my needs. There we are. Something like this. Maybe if I could get the track to sit on that, that would look good. Oh, yeah, like that. I'm happy with that. That fit shockingly well. Cool. Yay. Barely. Okay. Yay for good surprises. We like good surprises. Oh, we have a kitty cameo. It's time for a kitty cameo. From Mr. Alco. Oh. Alco, you want to make an appearance on camera, buddy? Alright, let's get you down here. And then, say hi to Alco. Everybody's... We love Alco. You have anything you want to say, buddy? Yes, stop holding me in such a manner. Okay. Alrighty. And of course he's going to try to proceed to sit on the magazine. So the magazine's going to have to go over here. The things we do for our cats. No. Well, actually, we do want to save. That's a good idea. That's a weird display. There we go. Alco, you're getting love from the internet. Oh. And back in we go. Sandstone strata. Probably. I don't know if anybody's using that kind of terminology in terms of the asset files, but it exists somewhere. Yay, cats. Alco, you're well appreciated, my boy. Okay, but yeah, I'm actually very happy with how that rock cut turned out. So let us see what else we have that can kind of sort of work in that vein. So the rocks like this where, I mean, it is kind of apparent it's a rock, but it's also not entirely. Actually, I really want to use that over here. And move it there. Kind of a base. Let's see what else we have. really giant one. But maybe we could make this work over here like we did the other one. Does lightning strike twice is the question. Kinda? It's gonna be tricky at best, but... Ooh. 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 I like that. It doesn't quite work in terms of the height of the actual asset. Not so much. Oh yeah, we'll have some fun with detailing like that. I'm inclined to put that probably over here for now. Or actually, better yet, maybe even over here. I'm losing sight of the target. Oh well. Let's go back to the Ultra Rock since we downloaded a bunch of them and see what we got. Rock. Because there are some that are supposedly smaller. Oh yeah, I could work with that. That I could work with. Kind of. Maybe. Even the smaller rocks here are a bit too big. But you can see why we're going for this. It's that element of really trying to create a sense of separation between these two. And yeah, we could build them up with trees, and I think that will go a long way, but just a little bit more. I like the idea of being able to cover the top of a locomotive so that if you're looking at it straight on, you don't fully see it. Yeah, even these small ones are pretty darn tootin' big. Not if you were designing a full-scale thing, but obviously that's not quite what we are doing. I might have to come back to that thought rock-wise. Or maybe we'll just see if we can make it work with trees alone. Because maybe trees alone will be enough to make that convincing. Let's give that a try. With our favorites, the STRMMs. Let's see how we can do with those. Goal being to really make this feel grown in and really isolate all of the gaps between different track sections as much as possible. Yeah. And if we look at the pictures, we see a lot of tall pines and deciduous. So that's the kind of stuff we want. I love me some sosnas. I'm going to tell you what sosna means, but I love them. I'm liking how that looks, though. That's one of the interesting things about building these train simulator layouts. Is even where I'm trying to get it to look as much like the actual layout as I can, there's always some deviation based on the available assets and whatnot, and the result is that it gives it its own distinct look. It looks very different from what the actual layout does. But not a better or worse kind of thing, just different. Let's go down to the sosnas and see if I can find some small ones to put here. Because basically as soon as we clear the trees... I mean, I like that. That's more of a Western thing, though. I am mainly thinking of this as an Eastern. I like that. I can't... Can I fit it here? Yeah, I can actually kind of fit it here. And it even makes some visual sense. Yeah, I like that look. Now, let's see what we can do that fits here. Yep. A bit tricky to give it enough space between the two, but I think that to a certain extent it's unavoidable that we could look down the switch. Oh, I see. Actually, in the quote-unquote original, there's a lot of tree stubs. But yeah, we pretty much can look down the middle, so Not a big deal if this is where our first tree begins. And then we'll just scatter a bunch of these around because I like this, and then we'll come up with some other ones that we can scatter around to. Not quite. It's still not sure what I want to do portal-wise. I think I'm going to hold off on... Oh, I know of a portal that's available, but I think it's narrow gauge. But I think that might just be an off-camera thing until I figure out what I like. And we'll height, and then we reduce it here. Yeah, but I'm liking how this is looking now that we're getting the... Oh, that's a really small tree, so I could definitely fit that in here. Which is convenient, because then I could also fit it in here, and maybe a couple here. Add some along here. Really get a sense of it being grown in rather than super rocky, which again, I'm trying to avoid that as a look, but some of that is unavoidable. But hopefully it looks a little bit more... Oh, this is a good model. And it doesn't look quite as... That's a good look. But you see what we're going for here, this idea that each of these is really isolated in and of itself. Yeah, exactly. Logging railroads should have the portals. Have you ever thought of making the Gerard branch in Train Z Simulator? Of the Bessemer Lake Erie? Not really much to the Gerard branch. I've definitely contemplated doing Bessemer Lake Erie builds, but I would do something more along the main line, because there's just not much to the Gerard branch operationally, unless you super backdate it. Other problem is there's a real lack of Bessemer Lake Erie content for Train Z, so there's not much that I can do of any sort without having suitable locomotives to use it with. Otherwise you're just using placeholders, and then what was the point of doing the Bessemer? Ooh, I like that as undergrowth kind of stuff. That looks nice. Should probably find some stumps to place along here too to suggest that this has been sort of logged out. But that looks cool. And then we could place a bunch of these over the rocks to make them a little less conspicuous. And the result being that I feel like now we're just not... It's so much easier to block this in scenery-wise. Now we're not staring at the same... That feels like a western tree. Yeah, that's good. That root. Oh, I like that as a tree model. Yeah, we'll put that right here. It's a bit too wide for there, and we'll put one there. Yeah, this is it's a different feel from it, but I like how it's looking. It at least makes sense for what it is. And hopefully you like seeing this unfold as well. You see what we're going for. Really making the most of this as far as, yes, you've got a limited amount of space, but by way of adding these view blocks, they feel a lot bigger. I like the idea of having a dead tree as sort of a... Not sure if that's the place for it, though. Like the idea of it. Just don't like the actual look of it. There we go. Partially because what I'm noticing too when I look at this is that if we block the end of this switch off, it makes this look like it goes much farther back. It gives it a great sense of depth. Does the switch list come with a printed recipe for Nana's pasta sauce on the back? It kind of feels like it should. Again, hopefully once we're done, this is gonna not look so spaghetti bowl. And if you still saw it at the end and thought, this is too spaghetti bowl for my taste, I would not blame you. It's something of an acquired taste of a track plan. But I think there's a way to do it where it makes sense. I think it can kind of work. And then I just want to sort of see what that looks like. I mean, that looks too repetitive with it all being the same tree, but if we move a couple of those around, grab that one. I dig it. I think what I like about it is the fact that now it takes this thing that would be very linear or very easy to just look across and you see this mess of tracks, and now you can't quite make them out in that same way. So it forces you to have a different look upon it, which I think is a good thing. That's good. Part of what's going to be interesting too, I feel like this is about really short trains. Short trains or display trains, because you've basically got room for an engine and a car. And if we look at the track plan, we see that that's not really an exaggeration. It's pretty much just a track. Maybe there's room for 2 cars once we get to logging. I'd like there to be enough room for 2 cars, but I don't think there's going to be much room beyond that. But I love that. Pretty good deal. Can we take bets as to which one of the switchbacks Nick is going to run a train off the end of? I am not going to run a train off the end of any of the switchbacks, but we'll find out in about 20 minutes when I play with this thing. But no, that is not going to happen. You are sadly mistaken. How do I want to handle the gap between the houses? So in the original, it's more trees. More trees, penguin. Sorry if you didn't get that joke. That was a Wallace and Gromit reference, but admittedly a bit. Let's see. I like these trees. Like, trying to vary the greens a bit. This is maybe early fall, but we don't get that kind of ability to differentiate between seasons here, so we kind of gotta make do with what there is. 24, that seems about right. Yeah, put a couple of the tall ones. Just enough to say, hey, there is a separation between this town and this logging branch. It does get into questions of how accessible are these switches to reach, and I'm not even convinced that they are on the real thing, but I've never been to the real layout. I'd love to see it sometime. Gather it's in Cincinnati. The builder of the layout is a guy by the name of Frank Henry Feeler. If anybody knows Frank, wants to show him this video, I'd be much obliged, and I'd be curious to see what he thinks of what we're doing here. A cool layout regardless. I'm satisfied with that level of treeage for now. I think that's good enough. Now let's see. The boundaries of our layout are right along the edge here, so there might be a tree here, and that'd be about back layers. That might be about it, but we'll do that just so we have something of a backdrop. Interestingly, when I look at the magazine from this perspective, we're able to see trees pretty much through the entirety of the backdrop. So that's going to be our goal, is to replicate that feeling of when we're looking down here, you see trees even back here. And I think we should be able to do that. But I do want to get to ground texturing shortly. Hopefully we'll get to that next. Need that for the moment. We'll put a couple of Yazans around. And the Sosnas. This could really actually do with a nice big clump of Sosnas if we got them. Ooh. That's a pretty tree. Nothing else. I like it for that reason. I kind of want to build up the hill here, though. Let's see if we could get it. Because we finally have an area where there's enough space that I can actually do... Oh, I'm going to have to make sure that track remains level. But this is the kind of thing that I wish I could do more of inside the switchback, is having these actual hills placed. Because that really gives you a sense that you're disappearing into the woods. And really separates the track levels from each other more so. But that works. I'm happy with that. Make sure the track's locked in at a height of 0. Is, so that's good. And then we'll just lower those points that are getting through the track. I like the look of that. And then here we have the edge of the layout, but in this case the edge actually is visible, as in I think one can walk around to that side of the layout. I don't think it abuts a wall. It doesn't. Interesting. Okay. Then what's this building over here? That is a house. A nondescript house. And when I look at the larger picture of it, it looks like a... This will be a shocker. It looks like a house. What's an example of my famous optimism? I mean, yes, I'd like to think that my optimism is famous, but what exactly in this particular instance is an example of that at work? Oh yeah, not that I've hooked it up, but this is going to be our station over here, somewhere thereabouts. The awkward thing with this, one of the awkward things with this track plan that I'm not crazy about, if we look at the original. So our station is over here, as we see, which is kind of okay in and of itself, but we've got these two tracks that aren't used at all. And so our switcher, so our interchange, the 3 tracks that we can work are here. And it feels awkward that your train coming from staging, so your mainline trains, which aren't modeled, mind you, because you don't have anywhere for them to go. So they're more of a concept than anything. But really, I think the station, this is one place where I'm going to deviate from the plan, and I'm going to put the station over here. Now, his layout, he does have a motor car that he's able to use for hauling passengers along the line, but we don't exactly have one of those. We don't have a ton of motor car options in the sim, and B, I just think it makes more sense to put the station on that side, because now these are your mainline tracks, which we never do anything with as the humble logging railroad, but we're bringing in our cars to work with here. That just makes a lot more sense. Also, it's going to be a lot easier to do scenic separation with that over there. And then I want some kind of cabin. What kinds of cabins do we have? I do want to put a... Yeah, a log cabin of that kind might be nice. Ooh, like that. I'm going with that. The house has become a log cabin because that looks nice and rustic. And then in this corner next to the sawmill, a lot of weedy kind of things. Do a little bit of that. weedy kind of stuff. Like, and then we'll hide that. We'll grab that. We'll put a few of those along here also to kind of give ourselves some that separation there. Might end up building this forest out a bit, truth be told, because the real layout ends here, but because this is already having to come out to here, maybe we'll square it off that way, yeah. Less scenery to have to worry about anyway. Let's get back to this. Osmos. And then, do I like how that is? I don't really see anything there, so I'm gonna leave it as is. Then we'll need to adjust height on those so they don't stick out from the bottom. And then we'll add some of these to provide some variety. As a loose approximation of things, I like it. I think I want to get onto track texturing next. But for giving us a starting point, that will be good. And just to give some sense of what do we do when all else fails. See, this is what I'm trying to avoid. This is the kind of dramatic end of it, so to speak. This is the easiest way of being able to separate two levels without having to do a spline. But having a stone wall in this area just feels a little overly elaborate. Now, timber wall. That would make sense. Actually, I wonder if there is such a thing as a timber wall. Timber bridge. Timber peak. Interesting. Timber jetty. But I don't really want it to be on a bridge. It's more like I want to have this kind of sense of reinforcement. I like that file, though. I like that shape. Yeah, something like this, but this is going to be too... That concrete looks way too polished. But that idea of things, I like how that looks as a concept. You could feel maybe a bit more overly elaborate, but at least it looks something like a retaining wall that would just be cobbled together. It's a bit too nice for that, but maybe we'll just do it to have something in place, and then we'll find something later that we like better. Just to give ourselves a little bit of a this is what we're going for kind of vibe. Actually, I kind of like how that looks, honestly. Even if it is maybe a bit too nice. The main issue is just that concrete on top. Could reskin it. These and other thoughts for the universe. Hope you guys are enjoying being along for the ride as we're building the Sandy Fork Logging Company here on Great Train Layouts Live. Appreciate having you along for the ride, and always good to have your company while rebuilding. May want to check at the end of that. Yeah. Track. Agreed. Oh, I like this thing. This is what I'd actually be inclined to. I think I want to put this over here. It's a different kind of coal loader than what I envisioned, but it has the right look about it. Looks rustic. So it's probably too small, but it'll work for what we want to. As far as the end of this track here, yeah, let's see if we can refine that a little bit with this dock wall or not. But we'll give that a shot. As I say, the thing that bothers me the most about it is just, I wish that we had kind of a dirt bottom to it, more than anything. Something worth that I wanted to mention too, as far as so we're doing this partially to celebrate the Mount Rainier comeback. But part of the reason why I'm excited about comeback is because I created the launch trailer for Western Forest Industries Museum. So if you haven't seen it already, go to just search Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad on YouTube, but organize it by upload date. There's a YouTube channel as well for Western Forest Industries Museum, and you can check that out there. You can see the video there, the trailer that I did using contributed footage and piecing together something that kind of gives a sense of what it's going to be like when the railroad comes back to life. Yeah, I don't like the pad, but I'm just going to live with that for now, for lack of a better alternative. Same with this here, which, yep, definitely not quite what would be fitting it, but for the sake of just having something in place, it's what we'll go for. And how do I want to get that to fit in there? That can work. We'll just need to raise the elevation on it. Yep. And there too. Kind of like it. Teeter totter. There's got to be a better way to do that. I like this deck support. I really wish I could couple the deck support with some type of timber work or something like that. But I'm not quite feeling it. So maybe... let's see if we can find a timber stack or something of that sort. Ooh. Timber gantry. Yeah. I want that, and I have that. Cool. Okay, let's see what we can do about this. That's definitely not what we want. Let us see what we can do about having something to go underneath this here. Bridge or something? Yeah, for lack of a better idea, let's just do a trestle. I mean, I think what bothers me is a trestle feels more elaborate than I want to go. Let's just do something with a stone wall. So, obviously, way more elaborate than what we want to do in the long run. But for the time being, this will work. Just have something in place. So it's not leaping out to me like, how dare I not have this figured out. Better. As you can see, it looks a little too Victorian dock kind of scene, but we could also possibly have some trees going, or weeds going through it and the like. Works for now. Allows us to move on. I want to get some ground coverage. I want to play with this, but I want to play with it when it doesn't look like a grid. Oh my gosh, and I only gave myself 4 minutes. Well, we might get longer than 4 minutes. But that's okay. So if we look at the photos of this, we see that the ground is a lot of dirt with sort of spatterings of grass. And so that's how we're going to treat this. Dirt with spatterings of grass. So we'll do a base level of... that's cliff dirt. Which might look actually quite good on this. Ooh, yeah. Good in areas like this. So we'll do it as sort of an underlayer and then refine it from there. Because I think part of the key to this is going to be have a nice varied color palette. But that gets us started on things. I'm just really going for a random, haphazard kind of aesthetic. This is not first-class mainline by anyone's stretch of the imagination. I like the look of that gravel. It's maybe a little too dense as is now, but we could start with that and sort of change it into something. Have some grass sort of grow through it, maybe some... something along those lines. Bit too rough for there. I like those. No, too beach pebbly. I like these though. I like this as an underlayer, and then we kind of can vary it with some regular gravel and so forth. So if we go to PVR. Nice grass textures to mix with, though. Get some darker colors in there. Definitely gonna need some more dirt up here. So let's... yeah, I suppose we could use this dry grass as kind of a base. I like that as a base texture, and then we'll build on to that. At least for that section there. I do find the overall size of this layout to be particularly nice for some reason. There's something satisfying about it being just this 6x6. And even though it is... and it's a good example of breaking the rules, learning the rules to break some. Because as a general rule of thumb, I would never be cramming this much track into this tight a space. It makes me think of the layouts that one has that are circles, and you put the turntable in the yards in the center. It's so much. It is really tight space. But here it kind of works for me, and it kind of looks good. I'm really happy with how these scenes narrow in. So I agree. I find it... yeah, I would agree with you. It's definitely satisfying. You know what I'm inclined to do? And this is not in the original design, but kind of building off of Rudy's question of just making it a trestle. What if... because of all the things this has, it does not have... oops. An actual trestle. So let's fix that. Because if we put a trestle here, then we have the advantage of giving ourselves a little bit more room for headspace coming off of this track here, going into this yard. There's still a little bit of a limit here, but I feel like right now this is the weak link of having not enough space. But if we give ourselves a nice wood trestle, I like that idea a lot, actually. Now the key is going to be to find a trestle that we can have a gap with as far as fitting the underneath track. Let's see. I think this will work. This might work. 110, and then the creosoted version. Yeah, we'll do the creosoted version. And then just apply the height. Yeah, there we go. That's what I am talking about. Now the key is just to get it to have the... So close. Yes, there it is. And whoop. There it is. And then we just need to connect this to it. I don't know why I decided to put a switch stand there. But now we've got a little bit of wood trestle. Suggests going off into the distance, which I like. It does help to exist the non-existent, or camouflage the non-existent tunnel portal, which eventually will be a real one. Theoretically, too, one could, if you wanted to get away from making a tunnel portal, you could have the land come up to the bridge. So that's the point at which it disappears. Might look a little odd for the top, but I'm happy with that. Works for me for at least right now. Because, again, we are trying to just basically get this to look decent enough to have some fun to play with. But I like that. That is nice and rustic and rough, and that is cool. Not that texture. But we could use that texture here. I like that for being able to have some smaller rocks with the bigger rocks. And then let's go back to a PBR dirt. Maybe a PBR dirt and grass. Very patchy. Yeah, that's very patchy, alright. But that'll work as a starting point. I feel like this is another way in which you could kind of do scene separation as well. Is that if you're using slightly different types of ground cover between scenes, it sort of gives you the idea that, oh, this belongs together and this belongs together. It creates a sense of separation in a good way. And then we'll add some more dirt. This is a... Oh, I like that. I like mixing these. Definitely need some more traditional dirt that's just dirt, but I'm liking this as a grass texture. And then add a few more spots of it here. Gonna have a lot of fun super detailing this too, for sure. Definitely a lot of potential in that regard. And this is gonna be my base through here, and then we'll vary it with some other textures. I'm just gonna worry about this 6x6. I don't want to get into detailing that. Does trains not have... Let me see if I have any wooden portals that are ready to go. Because again, I don't want to... None that I can find there. Let me see if I... Wood portal. That's a... That's a new portal. Let's wood portal. Let's try searching that. See if that gives up anything. So, I like this. Can we fit? Oh, yep, that'll fit. There we go. That's what we're all looking for. That's the moment you've been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen. That right there. There we are. And it's going to need refinement and so forth. But now at least we don't have to look at the train just coming out of nothing. Now we have an actual proper portal. There we go. Yep, that's the right stuff. You guys help to motivate me. When I'm ready to be like, yeah, it's close enough. You're like, oh, come on, Nick. You can find a wooden terminal portal. You can do that much. And you know what? You're right. Dirt. Have a look at some dirt. I want to get some more soil stuff, especially here. Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's good stuff. Definitely want to, because I want to bury that grass as much as possible. Really make it look dirty, scuzzy, and just occasionally peeking through grass. And then a little bit around here. Some more dirt through here. Let's get some more grass through here. Suppose I should see what it looks like if we completely get rid of the ballasted track. Because I like the idea of having unballasted track. It's perhaps a bit too clean. And the reality is, this is a sim, so it's going to look clean basically no matter what. That's kind of unavoidable. So if we replace that with SG no ballast. Yep. If this. And it then looks like, yeah, that's better. I mean, to really refine it, and I probably am going to want to play around with really going super subtle on the ground and getting it to kind of bury like that, but yeah. Yeah, that looks much better than having the ballasted track. Because now now you don't have that perfect uniformity of the rock. It looks rough. Yep, that was definitely the thing to do. Some areas are going to be easier than others. We're not going to worry about those right now. But as a base kind of thing, as a sort of base, hey, let's get this to look a little bit more rustic and so forth. Yeah, that does the trick nicely. And then, oh, I'm pushing it. But okay, so we're going to push it. I feel like this will be a shorter play section anyway. As long as you guys don't mind. I mean, this is all for you. So if you don't mind me cutting into playtime a little bit, then we will. I think we could do playtime a little shorter, truth be told, because I'm thinking, oh, wow. Look at that. Oh, yeah, that's... Oh. Proof that ground textures make the difference. I think that just... Ooh, that's a scene. That's a scene right there. Oh, thank you so much, Pacific Productions. Have you heard KNL Shays has its 10-year anniversary? Yes, I did. I saw that they released their K4 as Pacific as a way of celebrating that. I'd like to do a Pensy route, so... Yes, good question. And thank you so much for the contribution. Really appreciate that. Yeah, we're gonna go to town. As I say, there's probably enough here to justify building it for another month live stream, but I feel like a lot of it is going to be really finicky, fiddly stuff, and I just don't want to bore you guys with that. And especially trying to figure out how the mine's going to work. That's going to be interesting. But let's just get some final details in place. So obviously there's going to be some more tall grass. There's going to be a little bit more painting with a little bit more variety in our... But, you know, for 2 hours work, that's pretty good. Okay, last thing we're going to do is we are going to build the log pond. Because you can kind of see that shade of blue there. That's for a log pond. Not a big one. But we're going to try to do it with actual... I mean, this is digital after all. But actual, real digital water. As much of a misnomer as that may be. I mean, on the layout, it looks kind of... Well, here's what it looks like on the layout. Here's what we're going for. Is this right here. There. So you could see the logging pond, the mill pond or whatever it'd be called there. So we're going to build that. Because this actually does have animation with logs. It's kind of cool. So, given that we don't have much more around this particular area, I feel like we could kind of have at least a little room for a little itty bitty pond. Just a little itty bitty. Yep. And then, can we expand it a little bit this way? Yep. I'm satisfied with that. So now we can actually have reflections and that type of thing. So there you have it. Anything else you guys want to see me do before I start playing with trains? Thanks for joining us, Derpy. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of super detailing to be done, but I want to move some logs. I want to do a little bit of operations as far as... Oh, let's make sure I actually have a connected interchange. I don't. Let's fix that. So, turn the base maps back on. Let's get this all hooked up. So this is going to be a little bit of guesstimation, because really this... So, the tunnel happens here. I think we'll keep that the same, actually, come to think of it. So what I'm going to do, we're going to have this track go into a tunnel here, like so. And then as soon as it goes into the tunnel, it's going to curve up. But we don't have to worry about that bit. Well, we do have to worry about that bit tonight, but one thing at a time. Put our split there, there, and then we have a nice loose curve. Oop. Yep. And then we put in our switches for here. And here. Let me make sure I didn't just destroy my frogs. Nope, that actually looks quite nice. And I think this is the last one that gets it. I think those are the two tracks that are... I have to hide that layer. Yep, okay, so that is our last switchable track. And so we delete the extensions we don't need. We straighten it out and... Oh wait, oops. Did I say delete the extensions we don't need? I mean extension we don't need. There we are. That looks good. So we now have an interchange. So once this track disappears into the staging, I'm going to have it curve off, and then our staging is going to run at something of an angle rather than underneath this, because again, this is going to be complicated. So the staging is basically, I think it's 3 tracks or something like that, where trains could appear and basically drop off cars for interchange with the Sandy Fork Logging Company here. So we can delete that, and that's good enough. That's what we're going to go with today. So hopefully we'd build the swampy bit. There's I think it's the Elk Creek Logging Company. If you Google search photos of it, you could see photos of a Shay basically going, not underwater, but the tracks are underwater, so it's going through the water. It's a really nifty scene. Something to enjoy for the final version. I swear making the embankments between tracks and a big lake or river look good is a pain. Oh, it absolutely is a pain. There is no two ways about that. This is set in the 80s, right? We're going to be running Dash 9s. No. About half of my layout is Tennessee mainline operations, considered Shays of the railway. There's nothing else we want you to do other than derail for the music. Nice try. Not happening. No, today is the day. Today, I'm announcing it here and now. Today is the day where we do not have any derailments. There are not going to be any issues. We are going to be a-okay. Life's going to be great. Our travel today is going to be relaxational and fun, enjoyable, luxurious. Well, maybe not luxurious. This is a logging railroad, but it's going to be fun. Let's switch out those switches. Those are a bit gaudy. I think that's going to be the last order of business, though, and then we can do something else, because, admittedly, yeah, I'm not sure. Interesting question as far as what would be realistic for a logging railroad. We'll go with the tall frames, sure, why not? So we might have some that appear in the tracks. We'll just kind of roll with it as we can. Yeah, no idea if the tangents are facing the right way and so forth. But we're just going for the generally right look of it. However, I can set a few just because I know that a few of them are set the wrong way. And we'll get rid of the extras that we don't need. Good enough for now. Okay. So, let us place some rolling stock and create a sense of atmosphere. So, first up, let's do some logging cars. So we'll say there's some, I think they're 42 feet. Yep. So if we look at how much room we have on our switchbacks, basically enough for 2 cars, which is really, really short. But as we've emphasized many times on the show before, it's not about how long the train is, it's about how interesting the operations are. So if we can only fit 2 skeleton log flats, we can only fit 2 skeleton log flats. Do I want to go with the red ones? Yeah, we'll go with the red ones. I wish there were more, kind of bunk cars and weight cars and that kind of thing. Sir Gibby did a bunch, but I think they're all narrow gauge. Which, one could do this as a narrow gauge HON 30, or, wait, could you do this as an ON 30? Yeah, you could do this as an ON 30, or you could do it as an HON 3. I think either would be an interesting approach as well. The only issue with the HON 30 is that your buildings would be bigger and maybe your clearance is too tight. So let's say you could do it as an HON 3. Yes. That would work. So we're going to have a couple of log cars up here to be loaded. That looks good. And then we'll have a couple of empties to bring up. You know, something interesting that I'm realizing as I'm staging this out is we don't have any runarounds up here. So you have to have your cars on the right end of the train coming into the set, or when you're coming up the hill, your train has to be blocked correctly because you don't have any opportunities to run around cars. Which seems realistic, given the nature of some logging railroads. We've got a couple of empty log skeletons, and we'll place those here, because that seems like a obvious place if they would get dumped here. Let's go with some flat cars. Flat. Yeah, 50-foot Pensy flat. Which would be loaded with lumber. Actually, I want to put those over here. See, I feel like there's a main line, but this is also just sort of whatever they can fit wherever it can be fit is kind of fair game. I see log loads. Do I have any lumber loads? Aluminum. Jeez. What might that be? Oh, perfect. Okay, there we go. We've got some lumber loads set up here, ready to go to interchange, and we'll bring a couple of flats in because that feels like a constant sort of need to keep moving. Should also have it maybe an empty flat ready to go up to the tie plant. And then the question is, can we... Oh, I know what would have ties. Yes, this car will have a tie load. So. And this is where I will admit my knowledge gets sketchy as far as what would be going where. Because I would think the logs would be going to the tie treating place rather than just empty flats. But we're going to treat it like empty flats are going to the tie treating place. Actually, I'm going to have to do 2 trips, come to think of it, because I can only haul 2 cars at a time. Unless I leave one on the hill. Interesting points to consider. Good enough. Oh, I know what I want to do for that. I want to have some ballast hoppers. But I'm also continuing to cut into my time being able to do stuff. But I would like to have some ballast hoppers, if possible. Four cars. Yeah, let's see if I already have them installed. I do not appear to have the hoppers that I thought I had. I thought I had some nice fresh cars. Let's see. How am I famous now? Oh. Yeah. Let's see what hoppers I have already installed. Because I know what I want. Maybe if that's really quick to download, we'll go that route. Oh, right. I wanted to use... Yeah, and then we've got this dry kiln as well, and I profess to not being entirely certain what we should put in that. Maybe we'll put the fuel cars for the kiln today, just to keep things easy. I have a feeling this is going to take more time than what I've allotted anyway. That's good enough for now. Last step is going to be to get some motive power. And what better way to do so than a nice, good old Willamette. Even though I'm typically more of a Climax guy, this is such a really well-done locomotive. With all sorts of kind of nifty Closing doors. I mean, this model's so detailed. So this comes from courtesy of Trains Forge. So detailed, you could even open the smoke box door, which you don't see now, but if we go into play mode, you will see the smoke box door. Sorry, so if that isn't cool, I don't know what. So this is our Wilmette. So we're gonna make it our mission today. We're gonna do a log run. We're gonna swap log cars. We're going to pick up the tanker, go to interchange, and swap things back. Pretty straightforward and simple, but given that we only have a half hour, I think that's kind of a good thing. Oh, let's see. Nope. Yep. So, I've got my handy dandy Xbox controller set up today for being able to nice and easy. I just have to remember what keyboard command I do. Let me know if the volume's too loud or not loud enough. All I hear is How about now? Is this a better volume? I do have a... Oh, that's not okay. So this is also where I think that it makes sense to do a logging railroad when you're really limited on space, because obviously the logging locos go pretty slowly. I'm not gonna have enough room to get out, am I? That's an interesting problem. Oh good, glad to hear this sounds better. So, oops, and I don't have room to get myself out of there. I really would be curious to see this guy's layout someday and to learn how he runs it, to then know if I'm kind of quote unquote doing it right. Anyway, so the thing with the logging engines is that they naturally go really slowly. So the advantage of that being that it makes a short run that much longer. So even just going out to the interchange or climbing up this hill is going to have a much different feel to it. So these are going to need to be on the back of my engine there to go in the right place. But I also need that, I'm going to need that flat car in the right spot. It's interesting to kind of figure out how things are blocked. I think... I thought I'd put the triggers on those. Let me reset that, because that's not clearing up for me. Maybe it changed when I changed out the switches. So I think what I'm going to do is stick those lumber cars in that track that I just came out of, just to keep them out of the way. And then that way I can have room to... I can have something of a runaround to work with. Good enough. Okay, now I think we can do that. Oop. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, TJing that it is cheating to move my train like that, but on the other hand, there's no possible way I could have moved it out, given how I staged it. So, I'm giving myself a pass. I've consulted with myself, and I am giving myself a pass as a result. Oh, select the train isn't under control because we're taking on water, which is kind of cool. This is gonna be really nice. I mean, flat areas are always really boring without a lot of detail to them, but once we actually get get some grass and weeds and that kind of thing in here, it's gonna look so nice. But it at least gives us something to work with and kind of figure out what does and doesn't work operationally. I feel like a lot of the trains just have to be single car or 2 cars when you're talking about actually operating them, because there's just, the stubs are so short. Anyway, let's have a look at this here. Rich, years ago I wrote the Cassie Bird. Yes, the Shays sound like you're doing 100 miles, but you're only going 25. I mean, I really like how the work that these guys did on this one at Trains Forge. It's really a nice model. I mean, that is just some really nice modeling there, with the steam coming out of the cylinders and everything. Alright, now a couple from here. So this is going to give us a runaround. Oh, yeah, we're refilling. Oh, you can see that, well, it was a moment ago, but you see the spout coming down and also the cap open in the tank. So these need to be on the end and the flat car needs to be on the front. So we are going to throw the switch, leave them on the track here, and run around them this way. And I like that. And once we've cleared the switch, there we go. And we can pull back. But I think what we've managed to accomplish today, even though it's still in a bit of a rough stage, is you can see that we've got these individual scenes, and I think they really hold to themselves quite nicely, in that we've got this lumber mill scene that, when it's done, is going to be really self-contained. We've got the town up here, and that's its own thing, and then we have the mountain and all the switchbacks and whatnot there. So, with 3 cars, we are going to be too big for fitting in there. So I almost feel like leaving the flat car off to the side and dealing with that another day. I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll put the flat car in the staging area. We could get the tank car down to take to the interchange, and then we'll take the log cars with us. Also attention to detail. Look at that. Not just the bell, but the bell cord. The way that swings. I think we could even go inside. Yeah, that's a nice model. And, yep, we are set into the right track to grab the tanker. Which maybe, hopefully, we have enough room to actually squeak by and fit both the flat car and the engine on so we could drop off this flat car. Base is tight here. I'm going to keep an eye on it because I am not derailing today. Ah, jeez. Can't fit anything in this. I might have to extend some of these sidings a bit because there just isn't enough room to... I mean, we just need a bit more room. I mean, that said, you can look at it and say, well, that's the fun challenge of it is that you can only switch one car at a time. But I think one car at a time is maybe a bit too limiting. Nevertheless, we'll bring the tank car down. We'll set it off on the interchange. And then we can set this flat car out of the way, too. Actually, maybe we'll just stick the flat car with those for the time being, and then we'll switch them later. I will say, I do highly recommend if you can get yourself an Xbox controller or have one, the experience playing trains with it is actually pretty good. At least as far as DCC mode is concerned. Works for that. For cab mode, you'd be starving for buttons. But for just basic forward and backward like we're doing today, it's perfectly suitable. And we're going to wait till we clear up that switch. And there we go. Set that over here, right? Yep, I want to set that on the not run around track. I have a switch controller, it's perfect in cab mode. Not familiar with using a switch controller on a computer. Maybe that'd be even better than the Xbox controller, but I'm happy with this. There's our tank car set out. So, what are some of the... I'll probably put out a poll in a few weeks from now to see what you'd like to see for next month, but what types of layouts would you like to see coming up on either Great Train Layouts Live or What Makes This Layout Great? I will say that for What Makes This Layout Great, my next planned video is of a Norfolk and Western layout. I think I may have mentioned that last month. It's something I'm still working on. Hopefully within the next month I'll get that done. I found an interesting area in Alabama that uses the train routes. Okay. I'm sure there's actually quite a few good mainline spots in Alabama that would be good train layout material in that regard. Okay, and now all we need to do before we climb the hill, we're just going to set off this flat car out of the way. with those cars that are going to interchange. Further just to make sure we don't have clearance. And there we go. So some of the options as far as what we could do next month, as far as potential layouts, we could go back to Tumbler Ridge. I could try to make a point between this month and next month to work on the track plan so we could actually start building the Tumbler Ridge layout that we looked at how we might go about doing that a couple of months ago in the sim. Oh, I can show you that animation now as we're filling up on water. So you see how the flaps open and close. That's a pretty nice touch. And off we go. So one of the things that I appreciated about this layout is that at its core, it is still a roundy layout. And that we have this loop here. So for those times when you just want to watch your train going through the scenery and you don't want to have to muck about with switches or going back and forth through the switchback, this is a nice... It's a nice way of getting around that because you can just have the train going on a loop. So I like that element. I'm really impressed with how layering this makes it seem so much larger than it is, because that 6x6, that's not a large space, especially for HO. And that's not even getting into the whole interchange and the swampy track, which is something we'll get into next time. But I think that the fact that it can touch on all these different elements of logging operation is a really nice touch. So, let us make our way up the mountain. Yay for super tight curves and super tight switches. Front. Realizing I should turn the engine around because we keep looking at it from this way, but we don't get to see that wonderful valve motion work. So I'm going to do that. There. Now we can actually see the valve motion in good light. So I like that. Make sure our switches are set. Wait, I don't see a switch stand for this switch, so let's fix that. That was a good thing to add, because it's also set the wrong way. And let's also change its trigger radius so that we can clear it properly. And there we go. Just in the nick of time. And let's hope that I can actually change the trigger radius proper, or that I can clear it. Because if I can't clear it with two flat cars, that is too problematic. Is he gonna derail? Is he gonna derail? No, he didn't derail. Let the record show he did not derail. I do need to clear that switch a bit more, though. Oh, okay. So close. Almost. Man. I might have to play around with that a bit more. I thought I changed the radius of that. Oh. Not meaning to place a track marker. Oh, I guess I did change the radius of it. I might need to extend that track piece by a wee bit. Let us temporarily move the train down here. And then we can just add a second piece to that bridge. Give ourselves a wee bit more room. And I can feel your comments coming in saying, Nick, you're cheating. You're giving yourself extra space. You were totally going to derail. To which I say, that may be true. But I can live with that knowledge. I can most assuredly live with that knowledge. Now, that has to be enough room, right? Surely that's got to be enough room. Oh, that's definitely enough room. Right there. Okay. We've got our trestle in. There is no way that our train will not fit on it this time. So if we move it back up here. And we get back in the cab. And we... Oh, wait. And there we go. Made it. Cleared the switch. 4-1 for the boys back home. Might have to use the smokeless versions of these cabins. They have a little bit of an overpowering effect, wouldn't you say? Little too foggy up here. Actually, I can replace those out pretty quickly. Let's see. If I get this, and I do a bulk replace for this with the no smoke version. You can see again. Yay. Smoke is cool as long as it's not totally blocking our view here. This one's okay because it's not blowing into the mountains. And this time I'm really not that concerned about clearing the switch. I think we have plenty of room to work with here. Now, some of that extra room you could go, well, does that really do anything? But if you pretended that you had different logging camps coming off of these different branches rather than them just ending, you could have camp cars. One of the things I saw a lot of in the article was having cars with log loaders or donkeys or camp cars. So I think that a good way of making use of some of these sites other than just as a switchback is to have camp cars and work cars stored along the way. Smokey the Bear smiling somewhere now. Yes, good old Smokey. And we've made it. And I have to say, this is, I mean, it is slow goings. And logging railroad is something I've gone back and forth in my mind about would I ever do modeling of a logging railroad. There is the advantage that it can make a small spacing very big, but by way of it going really slowly. But part of my challenge is that I like so many different things that I feel like whatever layout I end up building that's a large layout it needs to have an identity, but it needs to be malleable enough that I could run other things on it. Because I'm looking at this going, there's no way I could run my Rapido Canadian on this, ever. And I want to run my Rapido Canadian. The same thing that holds me back from not modeling OM30 is I look at it and go, yes, it would be really nice, but then you're really saying, I'm going to do this one specific thing. And maybe for some of you guys, you have the focus to say, I know I want to model this thing and nothing's ever going to change that. But for me, I find myself, I mean, that's part of why I started this show and why I started exploring all these different layout designs, is because one month I'll be interested in interurbans, the next month I'm interested in a logging railroad, then I'm going to modern railroading, and it keeps shifting back and forth, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but in terms of layout construction, it makes it difficult to say this is absolutely the way I want to go. So I think something like this, you have to say, I'm going to do a logging railroad, and I know that that's going to satisfy me to the end of time. Run a Canadian on here. I have a Cal Zephyr. I could put the Cal Zephyr on the bottom loop and run that around while we're taking care of stuff up here. Let me just get the switches thrown, because that's going to be very important. So yes, okay. To prove that it can be done in a simulator, let us go. And I think I have a consist built for it already. Hopefully I have. That'll save me a little bit of time if I got a Zephyr ready to go. Okay, yes. All right, there we go, guys. For your viewing pleasure, I present to you, if it can even get going, because it might kind of find itself stuck on the tight turns, but we have the California Zephyr on a logging railroad. But unfortunately, it may not go anywhere, because with Train Z with the really tight curves, if the physics are any accurate, it'll kind of get stuck. So we might not actually see the California Zephyr move, but here is the California Zephyr. I mean, it looks pretty. I'll give it that. Yeah, somehow I don't think we're going anywhere with this. Maybe we'll downsize it by a few cars. We'll turn it into the Rio Grande Zephyr. We'll take out the sleepers. Let's see if that does the trick. That is still stuck. So maybe this is a good lesson time to point out that no, your lovely Broadway limited California Zephyr that's designed to run around 22-inch minimum radius curves is not going to work on a logging railroad with 18-inch minimum curves. Sorry. So we've learned, if nothing else, we have learned that for today. But I'm always happy to entertain your requests, crazy though they may be. Alright, let's finish what we set out to do. I don't know that we'll do an interchange run, but we will at least switch our logs, and we'll bring them back for unloading at the mill. I think that ideally one would have a little bit more space, and you could stretch this out a bit. I think it works, but I will say I'm not crazy about only being able to run 2 cars. I know that I say that it's not about the length of cars, but I feel like given that a log train is kind of like a unit train, I feel like I'd want to be able to run 4 cars. And I'm actually realizing as I come back here, I'm not sure if I can fit 4 cars for switching over there. I might have to do 1 car at a time. Which, we'll see what we have to do there. But this is the reason why I think that it's beneficial to learn from train layouts like these, because I feel like here I was looking at the magazine, and I think this is still a really good layout, but it isn't without its faults. And so to be able to playtest it and see what do I like about it, what am I not so crazy about with it. That's the fun of doing this. Oh, come on. We cleared that switch. Yay! We cleared that switch without derailing. I'm on a roll tonight, guys. I am on a roll. But that's good. So now we're going to just tuck those 2 cars into that camp track. And then we can take these log cars down. Oh, that idle sound you're hearing is, by the way, that came up earlier. That's from the steam donkey, or the decker. Yeah, the decker. Simply to say that this Shays, I don't think uses default sounds. Is that I saw that as a topic earlier. Okay, now heading back. Back. Okay, now last question for the night. And you know this is a big one. Shay, Heisler, or Climax? Go. And I, for the record, will say I'm a Climax guy. I grew up 40 minutes from Corey. I'm technically 45 minutes from Heisler as well, but I've always just had a soft spot for the Climaxes. I guess you could say they were peak performance. Speaking of which, we'll see how much more we can of this we can do before I log off. Come for the layout design, stay for the puns. Oh, minaret supremacy. Yeah, since I did that video for Western Forest Industries Museum, the minaret has really been growing on me a lot. It is a very nice locomotive. Hopefully I'll get to see it once they get back in operation at some point. Because I'd love to see it in person, even if it's not running. Saddle tanks in general are growing on me. I wish there were more saddle tanks in this game. Should be good in there. Alright, bringing it back. switch. And let the record show that on this day, the 22nd of September 22, I, Nicholas Ozrak, did not derail. Put that on the record. As we're coming back down the hill, so we're just gonna bring these log cars into, we'll just bring them into the yard. I think that'll be a good stopping point for the night. So what do you guys think of this build? Are you, as I say, I'd offer to do a part 2 with the coal spur, but I feel like that's going to be tricky, and I'd rather just do that behind the scenes. But what did you think of the Sandy Fork Logging Company? Does this seem like something for those of you who play trains that you'll want to download? What do you like most about it? Leave your comments. I'd be curious to know what interests you most about the design. And I think there's things that you can take away from it, even if you weren't to do logging. I mean, it would lend itself very well to being a mining railroad as well. I think it's really about resource harvesting, whatever it is. There's no sort of tourist railroad or passenger train setup that makes sense for all this zigzagging, but I think it goes to show that you can occasionally break the rules when it comes to the spaghetti bowl. Because I think at the end of the day, what we've come up with here does not look like a spaghetti bowl. And gonna come out of the tunnel in a moment. This is going to be a fun one to super detail, though. A lot of nice scenes to play with here. And that was when the guy who, Frank, who made this who built the real layout, he said that part of his goal was to make something smaller so that he could really go all in on the detailing. Not only did he hand lay all of his track, he used actual twigs that he sanded the tops off of as ties. I mean, if that is a devotion to one's art, I don't know what is. Our trusty Willamette. Willamette. I heard Willamette recently, and I'm questioning my existence as to whether it's Willamette or Willamette. If anybody knows, please do let me know. But there we have it. A logging run with a little bit of local switching on the Sandy Fork Logging Company. A nice little design that has a lot going for it. And again, this is just half of the entirety of the thing. If you take into consideration the whole section over here that we haven't even gotten to yet as far as the coal mine, then there's a whole... So the intention with this, you have some more logging camps to service, as well as this coal mine up here. So a little bit sort of that Western Maryland feel. You've got the interchange, so you could bring cars into the scene that are used for lumber. You have this team track, so you could bring in other resources. Again, I think this is like a ballast loader... Ballast, coal, well, no, would it be coal? I think it's ballast or something of that sort. Like maybe there's a truck dump here, so trucks are dumping, and then you're picking that up and taking that elsewhere. Lot to do in a little space. If you like switching, this is totally for you. But even if you need your roundy, you've got a little bit of that as well. Willamette. That's what I thought. Willamette. Yes. Okay. So, as I continue to wonder how to pronounce the rival Shay, as it were, I thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Great Train Layouts Live. We are live usually the third Thursday of the month, but as I say, last week we had I had some work obligations come up that I had to attend to. So Thank you for your patience and waiting another week to join me this week. Hopefully, you've had fun exploring the opportunities presented to us by the Sandy Fork Logging Company. And do subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. I know that's such a cliched thing to say, but I do appreciate the support, and especially one last shout out to my patrons over on patreon.com/the Roundhouse. If you want to support Great Train Layouts Live, what makes this layout great, the Roundhouse, head over there. And again, right now, the Kootenai Lake Navigation Company is available for early release. For as little as $1 a month, you could get access to that, as well as I'm going to be putting more of the early release Train Z routes that we're building on the stream are going to be going there before they go onto greattrainlayoutslive.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night or the rest of your day whenever you're watching this. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.